Yeah, okay, so
Hello, this is July the 4th. Happy Independence Day to anybody located in the US. For all others in this year 2018, this is the KubeVirt community meeting. And we can start right away with an action item or an update from Roman on stability.
yeah, so during the last 2 weeks, we had multiple issues regarding to test stability because of the DevicePlugIn merge and for dev KVM device and a very annoying network test, which was flaky all the time. And both should now be resolved, and the test runs look much better now. Still, as always, there is always one test which makes sure that we don't get a perfect run, but it's pretty reliable again, which is good. That's a big step.
Yeah, thank you very much. I actually saw quite a few patches. Why I thought it's worth to put it there. And yes, the device plugins cost some instability. I hope it's worth it. Well, I know it's worth it. It will just take some time until it's really stable. And then I saw Artyom. Great that you put the agenda item on it. CPU model patches. I saw some stuff being merged for CPU models. Maybe you can shed a few words on it.
Yeah, so before my PR, we just set some default QEMU CPU model on all our VMs. Currently, we have possibility to set specific CPU model, and if if you will not set it, it will take the CPU model closest to one that the node CPU is using, and that's pretty all.
Thank you. I still try to find the right phrasing. Is the closest CPU model Libert knows about compared to the host CPU? Nobody will read it anyway, I guess. So, okay.
Is this, just a quick question, is this for when the node is virtual as well? So when the CPU is virtual on the node?
This is the virtual CPU of the guest.
No, I understand. I'm asking, was this, tested and working also when the node is virtual? So when you need to figure out...
Yeah, our CI is virtual, so yeah, it works. Because under our CI, we just use host pass-through. We take the CPU model from the host, and after it, we will take this CPU model from our virtual node to VM.
Does that answer the question sufficiently, Yuval?
Yeah, I was just wondering, because this could be kind of a common deployment case. I want to see that this is indeed covered, in the testing and so on, because I'm not sure how it treats when the model itself is virtual.
Ah, okay. Yeah, what we know is that if the model does not fit very good to the host CPU, then you have performance degradations. Actually, I wonder, does Libert complain about that? No, it doesn't, right? We just notice it. But I'm not aware that Libert is signaling that. So for example, if you take a, I don't know.
I think it will complain in case if you specified CPU model of the higher family instead of one that used on the node. So I believe it will just fail to start there because it expects some CPU flux and it cannot get it from CPU node. And
yep, that's true. That's true. Thank you, Toda. Okay, Slur for Sebastian. Something from the node. Yep.
Yeah, okay, so the Slurp interface was merged a few weeks ago, and now I also merged, thanks to Roman, the new interface struct. It contained the port inside of it and not inside of the Slurp configuration. It's got merged an hour ago. Right now, I'm also finished the Istio POC, so you can check it, and I would like to get some reviews and hopefully merge it. And now I'm working on two different things. One is the unique interface name. Right now we don't have it. You can create several interface with the same backend name, and the VM just will drop. And the other issue I right now working is with the virtctl expose. It allows you today to configure target port, but only in number, only int, and now we can use it with a string. So it will connect to the service automatically we create on the virtual machine.
Sounds nifty. Cool. Can you please add the link for the Istio POC work you do?
Sure.
Cool. Please add it to the document. So, Peter, update from hooks. Awesome. Peter is not here, so let me cover for him. So what Peter did is, and Peter, please add a link. Peter worked on actually hook support on the launch level so that we can modify the DOM XML before it's passed to libvirt. And that's pretty nifty because we can POC some stuff before it's really implemented in KubeVirt. I think you progressed quite far, and Roman, I know you reviewed that work. Do you have an up-to-date info of where that stands and how far it is from being merged? So until Roman finds the unmute button, these are the hooks in a container, and that container is speaking to the launcher via gRPC. I think that's very convenient. Actually, it should fit well with a lot of other things like device plugins, which also use a similar mechanism. And I wonder now, Roman, if you found the unmute button. Oh, yeah.
So what was the question?
If you can tell how far the hook work from Peter is.
It looks pretty good in general. I think it's not far away. It's actually, I just have one comment where we're discussing. I mean, it's not the final version probably, but good enough for an initial merge, more or less. So we can probably try it out soon.
Yeah, is that something somebody else could fix? Because I think Peter is out for the remaining week, and I would really like to get Alexander involved that we could try.
I guess we can find someone tomorrow then when the 4th of July is over.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Delivered in container, registers, speaks via gRPC. What is not using gRPC these days?
Es ist jemand an der Haustüre.
Hello, Google. Delivering container. Okay. Failing launcher pod work. Mark.
So I guess you mean the issue I'm working on for quite some days now. Well, the problem was that on a shutdown of a VM, that the final status of the virtual machine instance was wrong. It was always failed even after a successful shutdown. The reason for this was that when we set the final status on the virtual machine instance, that the domain was already gone. So we don't know the status of the domain, and so we couldn't do a good sync of the status to the VMI. The easy solution was just don't undefine the domain when it's shutting down and keep it, because when the virt handler port is shutting down, then everything will be cleaned up automatically, so we don't need to undefine the domain ourselves. That worked so far, but then the next problem was when we stop a VM and immediately restart it, we could find an old domain. So that was one case which needs to be handled. I think I have a solution for that now, but the pull request is still in review. And David added some comments, and so yeah, I'm not sure yet if it's a final solution which I have now, so it's still in discussion with David. That's the status.
Okay, cool. The reason why I put it here is because it was a really visible thing in the UI. So the problem was that in the UI, as we see on the issue was irritated by that. So it's actually cool to see that being fixed. And actually, it's interesting that the naive solution does not work and that it requires love. But love is required always, right?
Well, the solution works for the initial problem, but it has some interesting side effects, let's say it this way, which needs to be handled too.
All right. Cool. Then the next thing I think was worth mentioning, but Stu's also not here, is device plugins for KVM. So we merged that device plugin KVM work a few weeks ago to drop the privileges from the pod. Oh, actually, that follow-up topic. And we see that caused some semantical changes. So now we need to explicitly enable software emulation. The other side effect is that we could drop some privileges from the pod. But then we had again to set SPCT type on the container in order to avoid SLinux denials, right, Artyom?
Yes, it's correct. And about the problem with device plugin, yesterday I think I merged Stu PR that must fix the problem with Kubernetes version below 1.10.3. So I think we.
Yeah, very good that this was fixed. Yeah, it's a nasty situation actually, because device plugins, they just emerged better, or they are now still better, and there were different bugs here and there. So good for merging that. I think it should help us. On a note, a few follow-up fixes. What I wanted to get up is SLinux had to relabel launcher with FPCT to avoid denials. So what I wonder, and we need to look at that over the long run, I think, is what we do about SLinux. I mean, today we label it with SPCT, which will avoid too many denials to be raised, but that's not the solution, right? Because we effectively give it more permission.
Yeah, we just ignore all C Linux tagging and labeling and all this stuff.
Yes, the final solution which I would prefer would be that so one thing is that a pretty common thing is that the sockets can't communicate, that the listeners and the receiver from the sockets can't communicate easily because of SE Linux denials. That should be possible to be fixed without needing us to do something like distributing extra rules for SE Linux on the host level. And for the rest, I hope that we can move everything which is privileged out of Virt launcher on the long run and move it to Virt handler. To do it by, for instance, namespace changes or other third-party plugins for Kubernetes.
Yeah. I wonder, you said the socket issue, how would you solve that without this Linux rules?
It should be able by setting the right SE Linux labels on the corresponding containers.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I tried it and it did not work for me, at least on OpenShift, because currently we have C Linux enabled only on OpenShift. On Kubernetes, it's in permissive mode. So maybe OpenShift has some additional.
Still, I've seen that people are solving it with something like that. I know that it didn't work, like I said on the thing. Well, I still think it's possible to do it. We will see at the end, but I think that's the least problem, and it's a very common one.
Yeah, I wonder.
What's more an issue in the long run is we need to move out all the network device setup out of the container to something else. If it's core components, I would prefer Virt handler and going in there and doing the work. For more external stuff, maybe something like Multus or whatever, or how it is called from Petter. How's it called? It's not called Multus. KubeTron or something like that might do that. I'm sure. I don't think that we can do that without namespace switching. At least not right now without the without proper support for more hooks in kubelet.
Yeah, so the problem is that with Multus, or kubectl or whatever, it could help us to set up the devices. The problem is it would depend on the plugin. So the plugin would need to have the support to set that up, and that is what is problematic. What I wonder, maybe we can have a helper container, a container who is only privileged alongside the launcher, which cannot be accessed.
I think we should strive for having at the end a virtual launcher container, which we can safely give back to the user. And for as long as there is something privileged in there, we can't.
Oh yes, I'd agree. I mean, the launcher should be, the goal is ultimately to have the launcher to be unprivileged, but maybe we can have a sidecar to the launcher, which is privileged to do the setup in the namespace. Because, then we don't depend on the network plugin to do,
that would mean that, is that possible? That would still mean that the user who creates the pod or owns the pod can make it privileged. Although it's a sidecar.
Not necessarily, right? Because you cannot easily access that other pod, that other container. If it doesn't have a shell, you could go into its mount.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if you can have set up security constraints where you can say this container is privileged, and afterwards on the so this sidecar container is privileged, but the user is not allowed to do anything else privileged or something. I also think that it's fine if virt handler is privileged in general, and a lot of privileged actions can happen from there on. It's the same like with the virt and so on, they're just root.
Yeah, the other option is to maybe have privileged init containers. For example, specifically for networking, that might be interesting.
Yeah, in general, I think it's fine to have one daemon which is privileged and does all the privileged work. I don't think that we need it per VM.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I still try to. Yeah, I know. Okay, cool. But the goal is still the same, to see that we can make the law, because that I think is really the goal. The launcher needs to be unprivileged in the end. It must not allow a user to do anything with high privileges than he could do from the VM itself. Yeah. All right. Pending. Okay. All right. Okay, then in my own site, design docs. So it was offline. We discussed a few things which we want to see in KubeVirt. Beyond that was virt.io, RNG, watchdog, and PCI addresses, or PCI address related topics. In the last week, over the last few days, I sent out or shared the documents on the mailing list to give more people insight into that.
Fabian, just a quick note on that. As part of trying to learn how to do device plugin, I did a hardware RNG device plugin. So
nice.
I didn't merge that because I didn't think it has value except for educational purposes, but I can. So
yeah, specifically in the virt.io RNG design doc, the hardware RNG was covered as a next item outside of the scope of virt.io RNG, but device plugin for hardware RNG is definitely the way to go, in my opinion, because it is node dependent, and device plugin is exactly for that, to set up something inside the node which needs required privileges. So feel free to open an issue to track it and keep your branch there, and you might want to look at virt.io RNG as well. But yeah, that's what device plugins can help us with. And actually, I think it's interesting beyond KubeVirt. Hardware RNG is also interesting for other workloads. So for the Kubernetes device plugins repository, I think that's good.
There is one point there from the investigation I did, is that the problem with VMs is that they don't. The whole RNG is based on random noise coming from devices. Now, because the VM doesn't have lots of devices like a real bare metal machine. It can use software emulators, but this is like in a very advanced version of QEMU or withCentOS, one of the two. Like version 4 or something that I didn't see that we're using. Do you know anything about changing to latest versions of QEMU? Because I didn't see that in the version that we're using.
So first, yes, we also, and I just added that, I'll add that to the open floor to update our libvirt, I mean, the base image, which is currently Fedora 27, and to move to Fedora 28, and actually also to update libvirt to 4.2, which will include an update of QEMU. And then we should pretty much be on the state of the art. And that means that we'll have as watch or Virtual RNG device. Virtual RNG, we only have the Virt.io device, right, to pass through a hardware number generator, but there's nothing else. Sorry, I'm confused. I was thinking of Watchdog.
Just keep in mind when adding features which are only there for 4. Whatever, that it's not available in CentOS 7, so that might be an issue for others. We need probably switches or something to enable, disable that, or have other solutions too.
Sorry, Yuval, could you repeat what you were looking for? Because I was mentally.
So I was so the whole, I think the way that the /dev/random is done, because for VMs, this is in general for VMs. So the way that it's done on bare metal is that there's some kernel module that goes and pick up all kind of numbers coming from physical things in order to have enough entropy to generate real random numbers.
Right.
Now in a VM, usually you don't have many devices.
Oh yes.
Physical devices that you can go and read stuff from it and generate enough entropy. So, and also you don't want, you have the urandom, which is non-blocking, but doesn't guarantee entropy, and you have the random that is blocking, and you can get stuck there if you want a real random number. So in one of the latest versions of QEMU, I think, what they add, they have software that create the entropy and the randomness. And running, sounds like Slur, like it's software running inside QEMU and emulates the physical world that is not there. So maybe what they do, they just map from do a pass-through and map from something on the host, or just use the VM, and then it's pretty weak. And in the latest version, they have the software-based stuff, and this really should fix the issue.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. So, I mean, that is something to follow up on, and even to note in that design document.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look at doc.
Yeah, cool. Anyhow, I can encourage everybody to take a look at the design docs. Might be interesting, and a few more are pending for the virt and networking areas. Okay, well, yeah, so that's it on that side. Template testing, Gabriel. I think there was some work done there.
Yep, I mean, the template testing was completely redesigned. I mean, that according to discussions with Nelly recently, it's ready for being able to test several templates. I mean, they're given there. The goal is to test at least CentOS and RHEL template, and in the downstream, and the upstream at least Fedora and CentOS. I would like to do it by skipping the RHEL for the upstream, because for community it's not important. And nevertheless, tests will be there. It will just skipped by default because it will not have a RHEL image in the local storage. So that's and currently the code is already ready for the extension. I'm working on adding the RHEL image from the local storage. So it's done in collaboration with the automation team.
Very good. Yeah, it's good that the infrastructure, if I understood correctly, the infrastructure is now in place to make template testing easier. That's awesome, because I think I can just highlight how important it is that we test all of our stuff. Ideally, if I dream at night, then I'm dreaming of a world where we have tests for all the features we have. No, seriously, because especially presets and templates is stuff that people are working with. And so I think it's really important that I mean, for us, ourselves, the features are important, but the high-level flows is really what the people will work with. So having the testing for that, I can just highlight how important that is also to me to really have the testing for this end-to-end flows. And actually, what I want to say is, Gabriel, for upstream, for the community, might also be interesting to run RHEL guests, because after all, It's not running it on RHEL, but at least running a RHEL guest, like running Ubuntu guest. I think that is what we probably want to have in our CI as well, just to make sure that they launch, that they work with the template and the preset. Yeah, that's cool. So let me praise the testing of templates and presets, just because I think it's really important. And oh yeah, by the way, the next step is really, I would like to make the templates and presets, that's a proposal from me, to make it real release content. So currently it's in a demo content package, but I would really like to make it release content. But in order to make it release content, we need to have continuous integration for it. So continuously test it, and then we can ship it as something we support. But until then, it needs to stay to be demo content. We cannot test enough. Great to see the testing. Good. Yeah, looking forward to all the other tests in that area. Great. Okay. Thanks, Gabriel. I'm working on adding RHEL test. Yeah, last item from me. Today or tomorrow, I plan to do the release 0.7.0. I'm mainly waiting for some stabilization because I saw that some patches were about the CPU model and the device plugin fix from Stu yesterday, so I wanted to get that in. And then I plan to do a release today or tomorrow. Just heads up that there will be a new signed release. Any objections? Cool. Then, and Roma, please add your items to the open flow as well. A small note, because you said raised on the mailing list, Roman. I didn't get a feedback from Deagle. I'll follow up on that and try to ping them even more. That was the problem, really.
Great.
The other thing, oh yeah, Fedora 28 rebase. Yeah, just heads up to rebase Fedora to Fedora 28, but I would like to do that after the release, and then to see that we base it. Actually, a side note here. So I think it's important that we rebase into Fedora 28 because we get a lot of new stuff. But, oh, and that is, yeah, we want to discuss that. But then, on the long run, I wonder if we want to also test container images built on CentOS. Because I can share that as Red Hatters, we're going to build the containers based on RHEL. And CentOS is closer to RHEL than Fedora is to RHEL. So for me, as a Red Hatter, it makes sense to have images built with a CentOS base and upstream and run the CI against it, to be sure that it is good for us and downstream. So one of their thoughts, if it's worth it to build container images on both Fedora and CentOS. I'm not speaking about the node, but about the container-based image. Okay.
In general, yes.
In general, yes. Okay, that's interesting.
I would prefer CentOS over Fedora, but
in general.
And you know, my perfect solution would be with going something distroless, yeah. And for that purpose, I also created QEMU static builds, for instance, and then you don't have that issue anymore. Then you're building your QEMU and putting it in a container, and you don't have to care what's below it.
I want to say without going too much into distroless, the problem I have with CentOS is that for me as a Red Hatter, it doesn't make much sense, because the problem with CentOS is it is always released after RHEL. So in order to prepare ourselves or KubeVirt for RHEL release, because we know it is surfacing there, that's no secret, we need to prepare for RHEL release, but we can't with CentOS, because CentOS would, I mean, if we prepare for a new RHEL release, the features we get there will not appear in CentOS until RHEL was released. So
what will be the base for CentOS for RHEL 8? Will it be Fedora 28, 29, 30?
I can't speak about RHEL 8. I don't know if that name was even mentioned somewhere. So I cannot answer it at the moment. But I can tell that so far for RHEL 7, we saw that Fedora was a base. And so I think features will land there. And I mean, it's also pretty obvious that features which go to Fedora sooner or later land in RHEL. So that is why I see always Fedora as the base to prepare for an upcoming release, and then have CentOS in the aftermath as the stable base after all the features went in. to have that stable base. So for example, what I could imagine is that we use Fedora to develop our master. But when we have, for example, KubeVirt 1.0, that KubeVirt 1.0 is based on CentOS, because then we really want a lot of stability also inside the container images. So that
what I don't like about it is that this would mean that we would develop for months on Fedora, and then we say, okay, now we're stable, and then we change the base image, and then we say, oh, that feature is not there, that feature is not there, that feature is not there. So that's not really good.
Yeah, that's why I think it will be 2 streams. So, it's like, we have master for Fedora so that we can continue to develop against upcoming features, and then base the stable release on CentOS, which might require adjusting fixes.
From my perspective, we should
pull
withVirt and QEMU out of that and make it independent of the base image which we use.
Artyom, you also had something.
It also CentOS and Fedora have different libvirt versions. Like in Fedora 28, we will have libvirt 4.2, and under CentOS, it's still, I believe, 3.9 maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that is a good point. I think that is what we can sort out internally to see what perspective the respective team has on that. Okay, but that was roughly why I think in the end we might have 2 streams, but it's too far yet. I think that's really something for 1.0 or something like that. But for now, I would love to do the Fedora 28 rebase after the release of 0.7 at some point. Okay. Okay.
What I'm wondering is, I mean, there is also withVirt and OpenStack, and I mean, you can also run them on CentOS or RHEL and so on. And normally, I mean, so we're a pretty new project. We are still behind. We still don't have most of the features anyway. So I really wonder if we miss much right now.
So
if we don't have the latest version.
For example, best example is, for example, the Spectron fixes. That is stuff which will land in CentOS, but later, and which we get in Fedora pretty much immediately. In the end, I would agree. I think for 95% of the stuff we do, everything is there. And specifically because KubeVirt does a lot of stuff itself, like setting up networking and that kind of stuff, we even rely on an even smaller subset of libvirt and QEMU. So I think it's good, but yeah, I don't want to go too much into that because it's also so little explored area by now. But maybe something we can discuss.
So what I don't understand, so the CentOS, the Spectrum meltdown fixes are not going fast to CentOS. How is that possible?
So to be honest, they're not going to CentOS at all. So they are to the official repo. It's actually a special group in CentOS which is building QEMU KVM Rev from Red Hat's Rev product, which is then delivered alongside CentOS, because CentOS itself has just the plain QEMU package, which does not have all the features enabled which, for example, withVirt needs. So withVirt is building from the sources that Red Hat provides QEMU KVM Rev in order to have the QEMU KVM Rev version that's used by Rev.
Oh, then we could use that.
Yeah, then we could use that for CentOS, for example. Yeah. Okay. We can pick that topic up again. It's just, to me, it doesn't look like something we can do overnight. I want to think about it a little bit, at least. Okay. As you're talking, Roman, do you want to take us to the next open floor item?
Yeah, so since the project is still not so stable,
what?
There are a lot of cherry picks expected for stable releases, and it's kind of annoying to always, push the branch again and create a new pull request against new source. And as it turns out, Pro has already a robot for that, and we could enable it. Then you can write /cherrypick and the branch name, and then it will open the pull request for you. Might be helpful. If you like, you can enable it the next days when I find a few minutes.
I don't like it. I would love to try it out. I hesitate to, honestly, I did a few cherry picks for the release 06 branch, and not all of them were straightforward. So I wonder how that.
Yeah, it's just about opening it. So you will see then that then you have it. You can just work from there.
So to me, I would give it a try. But to me, I need to see if it really, or if it works for me. Yeah. But in general, it would be helpful because cherry picking is a little bit annoying. Reminds me, Artyom, did you do the cherry pick?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if it will have merge conflict, it can be problematic.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Anything else for the open floor? I wonder if anybody happens to be in Tel Aviv next week, he's open to fetch a sticker from me on KubeVirt. Just let me know. Contact me offline in case you're not a member of Red Hat.
I have two quick notes about the hackathon preparations.
And maybe we can take that offline.
Oh, okay.
I think it's an internal event. Okay, then here I stop the recording. Thank you very much for attending, and you all please stay here